Okay, let's dive in. You hear something like, die, oh yogi, die. And, well, it stops you in your tracks, right?
It really does. I mean, it sounds pretty final, maybe even a bit grim.
Exactly. Heavy. You immediately think physical death, something we're all wired to avoid.
But what if that's not it at all? What if dying could actually be, well, sweet, liberating even?
And that's the twist we're exploring today. We're getting into some fascinating material excerpts from talks based on a translation called Maram Hey Yogi Maram, all through the lens of the master Gorakh.
Right. And our goal really is to unpack what these ancient insights mean, especially this idea of dying. What did Gorakh mean, and maybe what could it mean for you?
We'll be looking at how this death can be sweet, why just following the rules might not be enough, the power of living spontaneously.
And what Gorakh actually saw after undergoing this particular kind of death?
It's pretty deep stuff.
So let's start right there. Die, O yogi, die. Die sweet as dying. Die that death Gorakh died and saw. Okay, what is this sweet dying? It's clearly not just fading out. No, definitely not physical death. The source material is quite clear on that. It even tells this story about a man who came to Gorakh thinking about suicide.
Oh, what happened?
Gorakh basically told him, go ahead, but you'll be very surprised.
Surprised. Why surprised? That seems odd.
Well, the implication is, you see, that simply ending the body doesn't end.
Yeah.
Well, in the way you might think. The death Gorakh is talking about, it's something else.
Okay. So what is it then?
It's the death of the ego, the old self. You're the part of us that clings, that fears, that calculates everything. That's what needs to die.
Ah, the identity we carry around, letting go of that.
Exactly. The Source uses this beautiful metaphor, buy as a drop and become the ocean.
The drop is the small self.
Right, it's a limited ego. And the ocean is, well, absolute life, vastness. So you have to let the drop dissolve to realize you're part of the whole ocean.
So the art of dying is actually the art of living fully.
Precisely. It's finding true, absolute life by dying to that limited, false self. It completely flips our usual way of thinking.
That's a huge shift. It puts the focus entirely inward. Which makes sense when the Source talks about the ultimate reality, God, the divine, as,
Neither isness nor no isness, neither emptiness nor fullness.
yeah, so unfathomable, beyond the senses. How do you even wrap your head around that?
Well, the Source suggests maybe we can't, not with ordinary concepts, trying to say God is or God is not.
Yeah.
It says both are kind of incomplete, often based on fear, actually.
Fear, how so?
Like the believer says is maybe out of a fear of not believing, a sort of positive fear.
Yeah.
And the atheist says is not.
Yeah.
Perhaps from a fear of what acknowledging that might, mean for them. A negative fear.
So belief and atheism, just two sides of the same coin, both potentially missing the mark if they come from fear.
That's the perspective offered, yeah. The reality itself transcends these labels, these dualities we try to impose.
And Gorakh, the Source, places him in this really profound context among giants like Krishna, Patanjali, Buddha, Mahavira, Kabir.
Absolutely. Heavyweights.
But then it says something striking. Gorakh cannot be dropped. Why is he seen as so essential?
Because, according to this Source, he wasn't just repeating past teachings. He was a genuinely new beginning.
Unlike Mahavira, who it says kind of reiterated earlier teachings.
Right. Gorakh brought something fresh. He's presented as the foundation stone for the whole saint tradition in India, the wandering saints and poets.
Ah, like Patanjali is for yoga, or Buddha for meditation.
Exactly. He carved out a new kind of path, a new way of searching and expressing the inexpressible.
It even mentions the Gorakh, the maze, because he offered so many methods.
Yeah, apparently he gave so many techniques, so many different angles that people could feel a bit lost. It wasn't one single neat system.
Like the inner world itself, maybe? Complex and multifaceted?
That's a good way to put it. It reflects the complexity of the journey inward.
Speaking of that inner landscape, the Source mentions this really intriguing idea. An inner child born in the crown of the head. Within the crown of the head, a child speaks. What's that about?
It's described as the birth of your true inner being, your divine form almost. But it's not a physical birth, obviously.
Right.
It's born out of samadhi, that state of deep meditative absorption, emptiness. The Source talks about the yogi channeling energy upwards, the energy that normally flows down and out.
Transforming it, like alchemy.
Kind of, yeah. A yogi burns up his sex, it says. It's about transforming that fundamental life energy into spiritual consciousness, an inner birth.
Which sounds like a form of renunciation, Sanyas.
It is, but maybe not in the way we usually think of it. The source emphasizes it's not about running away from life out of fear.
No.
True sannyas, in this view, is about consciously dropping everything on your own before death takes it anyway. That's a voluntary letting go, not an escape. If you just run away, you're still attached negatively.
Okay, that makes sense. But stepping onto a path like that, letting go of the ego, facing that inner stuff, that sounds terrifying.
Oh, absolutely. Fear is part of the deal, isn't it? The source uses these lovely analogies like a child leaving the womb or birds leaving the nest.
There's hesitation, risk.
But it's necessary for growth. The mind, the calculating part, it wants guarantees. Who's in it for me? Is it safe? But the source says the heart just wants to take the leap.
It's like learning to swim, maybe. You're scared of drowning, but you have to jump in to feel the joy of actually swimming.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
You can't see the other shore clearly. There are waves of doubt and fear, but you have to plunge in anyway.
Now, the source then takes a bit of a turn, challenging some conventional views, especially around things like Tantra, Van Marg, these left-hand paths. Why are people often so wary of those?
Oh, Van Marg, the left-hand path in Tantra. The source links these paths to different ways of being, almost like the right and left brain.
Okay.
The right hand is like the left brain. Logic, practicality, the market, science, work, useful stuff. Things that the world values because they're productive.
And the left hand?
That's more the right brain. Intuition, creativity, poetry, joy, things that aren't easily measured or seen as useful. Think of a painting, what's its utility? Its value is different. And the world often fears what it can't control or easily categorize.
And the core idea of this left-hand intelligence is pretty radical, isn't it? The intelligent makes even poison into medicine.
That's a huge point. It means you don't run away from life's energies, even the difficult or dangerous ones. Sex, anger, greed.
Instead of suppressing them.
You engage with them consciously. You transform them. Running away is seen as cowardly, not wise. Real intelligence uses everything, even the poison, as a stepping stone.
Which connects right back to living spontaneously. That seems key.
It really is. Spontaneity is presented as the antidote to that kind of false, rigid self-control.
And people who object strongly to naturalness.
The source calls them diseased minds. Because they've likely repressed so much themselves, the idea of authentic, free expression feels threatening. It mentions the backlash against Freud, for example, that fear of looking at what's hidden.
But Gorakh's sutras on spontaneity aren't just about letting loose, are they? There's wisdom in them, too. Don't walk with a strut. Don't insist on debate.
Right. It's not about being reckless. And then that line, this world is a garden of thorns, place each step alertly.
The garden of thorns. What a phrase.
It's the world, right? Beautiful, but full of hidden dangers, flattery, greed, anger, all the ego traps. So you need to be alert, aware.
But still, don't be stiff. Live spontaneously.
Exactly. It's spontaneity born from awareness, not carelessness, being fluid, authentic, not rigid. And this is contrasted really sharply with organized religion.
Yeah, the source is quite critical there, calling systems like Hindu, Muslim, Christian, all prisons. That's strong.
It is strong language. The perspective seems to be that these systems, even temples, can end up being factories for casting chains. They create dogma, rules, limitations rather than true freedom.
So true devotion isn't about following the rules.
It's presented more as a dance of the mad ones, those who've broken free from the constraints, who are moved by an inner spirit, not just outer forms.
Okay, so if it's not about rigid rules, what about desire? How does Gorakh view desire?
Desire is seen as energy, fundamentally. But often it's like energy overflowing its container, leading to extremes, causing disturbance.
Like eating too much.
Yeah, and Gorakh links that directly to consciousness. The sutra says overeating strengthens the senses, destroys consciousness, fills the mind with sex, sleep overtakes. It becomes a trap.
But just suppressing it doesn't work either, right? Like the monk only drinking milk.
But constantly thinking about others' cows,
Yeah.
his mind is still obsessed, still entangled, even though he's trying to be outwardly pure.
The source uses a lake analogy for the mind here.
Right. Desire is the wind rippling the lake's surface. When it's choppy, you can't see the reflection of the full moon god, the self, whatever you want to call it.
But when the wind stops.
The lake becomes calm, the being is felt.
Mhm.
Stillness allows reflection. So understanding desire, its roots, is key to calming the mind.
This all sounds, well, incredibly difficult to navigate alone, this inner Gorakhtanda.
Which is why the source stresses the need for a master. No depth without the master's shelter.
Why is the master so crucial?
They're like the tuner for your inner instrument, your vina. You could be too tight with tension or too loose with just drifting. The master helps find the balance, the harmony. They're the guide across the ocean when you can't see the far shore.
The truth is, only a master who has seen can help you see.
That sums it up, really. It's not about theory. It's about experience. You need someone who's actually made the journey.
So where does prayer fit in all this?
Well, the source looks at different kinds. There's prayer as demanding things from God, like a business deal.
Like eating God's brains, as it puts it, or selling meditation for success.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Then there's prayer out of love. But maybe the deepest form discussed is just silence, dissolving, offering yourself without asking for anything.
As a poem mentioned.
Right, suggesting the only real prayer is asking for the path itself, for the eagerness to be near the divine, not for external things.
This whole path seems so much less about books and scriptures and more about direct experience. Gorakh seems pretty tough on pundits.
Calls them parrots, yeah. Repeating words without the inner understanding, the source is blunt. No Vedas, no holy books could describe the truth. Instead, they cover it up.
Wow. So books can actually get in the way.
If you treat them as the destination instead of just signposts, yes.
Yeah.
According to this view, the real truth isn't written down, it's realized inside. Within the sky of the head, the word lumens. It's an inner light.
And just quoting old texts or masters.
It's being a grandson, as the source says, distant, removed from the living source. If you don't have a living master or that living inner connection, you're relying on echoes.
Like trying to imitate Buddha or Mahavira.
Exactly. And that just leads to being unnatural, hypocritical even. Unnaturalness arises from ideals, trying to fit a mold instead of discovering who you are.
Like the Jesus story about the woman caught in adultery. He didn't just apply the rule.
No, he turned it back on the accusers, made them look inside. True right action comes from that inner knowing, not just external codes.
So real yoga, it's not just about the postures we see.
Not primarily. Naturalness is technique, asana happens. True posture is a spontaneous stillness that arises when you're centered. Sanyam, that inner centering, is the core, not just forcing yourself into shapes or disciplines.
There's a story about a monk repeating a mantra like a machine.
Yeah, like a bicycle chain going round and round. It shows how even spiritual practices can become dead rituals without that inner awareness, just another kind of sickness.
It all comes back to awareness, doesn't it? Cultivating that inner state. The source talks about being a witness in the world.
That's central. Gorakh says, live in the world like this, eyes see, ears listen. Mouth says nothing. You engage with the world, but internally you're like a mirror.
Reflecting without reacting, without judging.
Exactly. Just seeing what is. And this witnessing, it dismantles the ego. Because the ego is tied up in being the doer, identifying with thoughts, actions, feelings. The witness isn't doing, just seeing. One whose ego is gone, his burden is gone. You become free from the entanglement.
Does this also change how we relate to other people, all the disturbances in relationships?
The source connects them directly. It suggests we get disturbed because we need the other person to be a certain way, to validate our ego, meet our needs. Think about arguments over trivial things.
They're often not about the thing itself.
Right. The source links sex, anger, ego. They often feed off this dynamic of the I needing something from the thou. If you drop that need through witnessing, the I starts to dissolve too.
I and thou are two sides of the same coin. If one goes,
The other disappears. Yeah.
This perspective really does challenge our usual ideas of sane versus mad.
It certainly does. It references people like Ramakrishna, Jesus, even R.D. Laing, suggesting that sometimes what society calls madness might actually be a spiritual breakthrough, a crack in the consensus reality.
And what we call sane might just be asleep.
Untruth is sleep. Truth is found by the awake. That's the idea presented. Being conventionally sane might just mean being well adjusted to an illusion.
But this inner truth, this secret, as the source calls it, it's not something you just shout from the rooftops.
No, there needs to be maturity, a rootedness.
Yeah.
Live in the heart. Don't talk of the secret. Speak nectar-soaked words. Speak from that deep inner stillness, that no thought state, not just thoughtlessly blurting things out.
And growing inwardly will make you different. That can cause friction. The crow and cuckoo analogy.
Yeah, the cuckoo grows up looking like a crow, but eventually its true nature emerges, and the crows might not like it. Difference can be challenging for the status quo.
Navigating all this requires enormous trust, it seems.
Trust is crucial. It's called the eye that sees God. Like how you see something special in someone you love that others miss. That seeing requires a kind of trust, an openness.
And satsang, being with a master, helps that trust grow.
It helps the bud blossom, yeah. It creates the right atmosphere.
But love itself has to be tested, the test of fire to become real trust.
That's the idea. Love is the beautiful flower, but trust is the enduring fragrance that comes after the flower has been through. Well, the heat, the challenges.
And God's tests aren't punishments.
The Source reframes them as signs of kindness, signs of faith in you. Like, existence believes you can handle this, that you can grow through it. The harder the test, the more faith is being shown in your potential.
That's a powerful way to look at difficulties. The Source also speaks very directly to that feeling of just being discontented with everything.
Which it says is pretty much the default state of the human mind. We're almost wired for dissatisfaction.
But that discontent blocks us.
It stops us from receiving, from appreciating what's already here. The Source asks, you have received life. Have you given thanks? For your eyes, your ears, just the sheer fact of being alive.
We overlook the basics.
Totally. And contentment, it suggests, doesn't come from getting more stuff. It comes from realizing what you are, from gratitude for what's already given. And paradoxically, that contentment attracts more gifts. Discontent just makes us shrivel up.
Because life itself is the gift.
Yes. Life is lovely because life is God, it's divine, even food is divine, Anam Brahma. The whole of existence is sacred.
So the goal, the peace we're seeking, isn't far away.
It's right here, right now. That's maybe the biggest point. The village is here. We keep running outwards, chasing illusions.
Like Rama chasing the golden deer.
And losing what's truly valuable in the process. The Source says the more we run outwards, the further we get from the real destination, which is within.
Stop your feet and reach the village.
That's the instruction. Stop the frantic outward chase, the cycle of desire and discontent, and you realize you're already home. The outward journey is the world, the inward journey is the path.
There's also that Sufi story about the traveler and the town, how the world reflects back what's inside you.
Yes, what you expect to find, or what you carry within yourself, tends to color your experience of the world and the people in it.
Which leads to that incredible teaching. When others become fire avadu, you become water.
Instead of meeting anger with anger, negativity with negativity, you respond with coolness, with non-reactivity.
It sounds like turn the other cheek, but the Source adds a layer, doesn't it? About the subtle ego involved.
It does. It mentions Nietzsche's critique and the story of the monk who is proud of his nonviolence. The point isn't just the outward action of being watery or turning the cheek.
Yeah.
It's the inner state. True nonviolence, true wateriness, comes from egolessness, not from trying to be virtuous or superior.
It always comes back to dropping the ego through awareness.
Seems to be the thread running through it all, yeah.
So if we try and pull this all together, this deep dive into Gorakhnath's perspective, it's not about morbidity at all. It's actually incredibly life-affirming.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This call to die is really a call to let go of everything that isn't truly life. The ego, the fear, the borrowed ideas, the constant discontent.
It's about finding that deeper, absolute life by dying to the superficial, false self.
Exactly. And we've seen the power of spontaneity that comes from awareness, the difference between just following rules and finding inner truth, the importance of trust and love, especially when tested.
And these aren't just, abstract philosophical points. They feel like real tools, real perspectives for navigating your own life right now, for facing challenges, dealing with people, maybe finding that inner peace or bliss the Source talks about.
It definitely gives you a lot to think about. It leaves you with this question, really. If happiness is supposedly our nature, if the village is right here, then what are you still running from?